That's caught. Randall Cobb into Chicago territory. Randall Cobb inside the 20-yard line. Randall Cobb is going to score.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second edition of the Open Book Show on Game On Wisconsin. I'm Eli Berkovitz here with Zach Jacobson. And just like last week and continue to do every week, we'll be here answering all of your Packer fan questions, as well as covering all the latest news going around the team and anything else happening around the Packers. So we had a practice today in Green Bay. I actually came out to practice to see it live. We'll get a bit more into that as we go along with the show. But there was some news that came out of practice today. Probably the biggest was that Davante Adams got a little bit banged up. He seems to be okay, but just in the worst case scenario, you know, if something were to happen to Davante Adams, me and Zach were discussing before the show what the Packers' kind of backup plan could be. So, Zach, if let's say kind of like last year, the Packers had to survive without Adams for an extended period of time, how do you think they would supplement his production this year?
See, this is something I know I've been saying kind of like all offseason. Hello, everybody. By the way, welcome to Open Book. It's something I've been kind of saying all offseason about how there's going to be less dependency on the lower end receivers on the roster, and you know, with the direction the offense is going and whatnot. Hello, Javier. Yeah, that's barring whether or not one of the top guys goes down like Davante Adams. If Davante Adams gets hurt, everything falls apart. Whatever the Packers want to do, they need to adjust on the fly, which something Matt LaFleur showed last year he was able to do. We saw Aaron Jones get involved. We saw him have that huge game against Kansas City. Hello, Mama Westendorf. We saw him have that huge game against Kansas City, but then defenses started catching on. They started playing, you know, covering him with more corners, not as opposed to linebackers. Yeah, if they sign Jimmy, then we won't really have much.
Yeah, we'll be good to go. If they were to bring in Jimmy, a receiver, yeah, I don't think we'd even need Davante, but let's not get there.
yeah, we don't want to. That's like a last resort, in case of emergency kind of deal. But yeah, we'll see Matt LaFleur get way more creative. That's when we'll start seeing the dependency on those guys, which, you know, like Marquez Valdes-Scantling. We'll see him step more into a role, kind of like he did last year. But we saw him kind of fizzle out after the first half of the year. Those last 2 months, he saw 17, 18 targets, I believe, was the stat line. Jake Kumro, barring whether or not he makes the roster, he'll need to play a bigger role. It's that dependency that you don't want to see on those lower end roster guys that I wasn't expecting to see this year. That would have to come into play. Yeah,
I mean, the lower end receiver guys would obviously have to step up, but I think if anything were to happen to Adams, the real production where it would have to come from, I think, would be tight end, especially considering how much we've invested in the position. 2 third-round picks, and now, you know, every day of practice, we even discussed it last week a little bit. I mean, Robert Tonyan seems to be everyone's favorite new tight end now. He's been looking great during practice, so you're looking at, you know, 3 talented tight ends now in that room. So I think if anything did happen to Davante, they would be, I mean, they're already going to be involved, but I think they'll be even more involved in that case. But let's not discuss these horrible what-if scenarios because I don't like that. But we were discussing tight end, and we got in a question this week from Twitter from sorry, let me just pull up their name over here. But regarding basically the tight end position, James Looney, who was cut by the Packers, he's no longer on the roster. And basically just how we think the tight end room is really going to shape out because like I just said, there's so much talent there. The question came in from @KennyClarkRocks on Twitter. So Zach, overall, like right now, like I just said, we have 3 young rising, it seems like, tight ends, and then you have the veteran of Mercedes Lewis. How do you think it's all going to, you know, go down?
I just want to point out before I answer that cheesehead_TV account, that's really weird because my Aunt Lori is married to a guy named Sandy, so that's very strange. They have a shtick where they pretend they're like related to me, but they're not. So like that's really weird. Sorry, I saw that and I got creeped out for a minute.
Yeah, no, that's definitely creepy if you have an Aunt Sandy, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's been a thing they've been doing for 2 years. That's like their Twitter gimmick. Anyways, So how do I see that tight end room shaping out? Sorry, I got thrown off by that whole thing. Well, for James Looney, it was just for him. It was just so difficult because they changed positions in December. Going from defensive end coming to tight end. So already he was kind of really the odd man out there and learning a new position really on the fly like that. Tight end of all positions, that's one of the toughest positions offensively to learn. But the outlook of that position group as a whole, I think we really have the three guys that they're carrying into the season set. You're going to have Jay Sternberger, Robert Tonyan, and Mercedes Lewis. Really, those are the three guys they're going into the season with. I would say Josiah DeGuara, but calling him just a tight end would be a huge, kind of disrespect to his abilities, what he's going to do in this offense. So I think those are really the three guys that are going to carry into the season, unless you have a different outlook.
Well, I mean, I assume you're saying they're going to be carrying, obviously, DeGuara, but you're not considering him a tight end. But, I think specifically locked in as tight ends, when you have DeGuara with that versatility, I don't think you need more than the three you have in Sternberger, Tonyan, and Lewis, because you add DeGuara, you're almost looking at four. Let's be real. I mean, no team really should ever need more than four tight ends on their active roster. And I could see it being like for sure in the beginning of the year, because right now we all have high hopes for Sternberger, but he really didn't play much last year. So he's almost in the same position as DeGuara. So technically they're all kind of on the same playing field right now. So right now it's all, Sternberger season. But for all we know, it could be Tonyan season. It could be DeGuara season. It could be all those guys could be involved. So that's really going to be a room where even if Davante Adams stays healthy, they're going to need production from the tight end guys. Not only because we don't have necessarily a ton of depth at receiver, but that's LaFleur's whole scheme. That's Shanahan's whole scheme. That the whole idea is getting tight ends involved, going down the middle of the field, play action, stuff like that. So I definitely think the tight ends are going to be very important moving into the year, regardless of Adams' health. And here we got a question from Aaron, our wonderful social media for Game On Wisconsin.
Oh, God.
Who stood out? Oh, God. Who stood out at camp today? So, like I mentioned before, last night at about 10 o'clock, I decided, why not? Let's just drive up to Green Bay and watch practice through a fence in about this big of a gap. And I went and it worked out. I got to see basically all of practice. And the guys that stood out the most, maybe in the first one, everyone's been seeing on Twitter, Josh Jackson was all over the field today, playing really tight coverage, getting to the ball, knocking it away. I really liked what I saw out of him today. I think Equanimeous St. Brown looked really good. He looked fast. And like LaFleur said, with his year off, it looked like he was really running the routes at a crisper level than some of the other guys. Like he knew the offense a little bit better. He made a couple of nice deep catches. And then I'm trying to think defensively. And then Adrian Amos had a really nice interception that he took for a pretty long return. And he mentioned in his post-practice interview that he wants to get more focused on intercepting the ball. And it was a hard catch. It was not your average interception. It was, laying out with his hands, grabbing it. So I think Jackson, Equanimeous St. Brown, and Amos all had really good days. But what else did you see from Twitter and anything else you've heard, Zach, from today's practice?
It's tough. I mean, I feel like you're kind of bragging in my face about the fact that you're just within driving distance. I'm over here on the West Coast. I can't do anything.
Look, you could still drive here. There's no water between us.
That's true. It'd be a hell of a drive.
Yeah.
From what I see, well, first of all, I'm glad you mentioned Equanimeous St. Brown, because from what I see on Twitter, there aren't really many mentions of him, and that's kind of going to lead people to believe that he's not really doing anything. He's going to go into the season with these expectations just so lowered on him, and he's not going to do anything. So it's good that you mentioned that he's kind of, making a little noise in camp. But from what I see on Twitter, it's Josh Jackson and it's Robert Tonyan pretty much stealing the show. That's really the two guys offensively and defensively that are making the most noise. Adrian Amos has had a very good 2 solid days of camp yesterday and today, intercepting Aaron Rodgers on back-to-back days, which a lot of people are going to make a huge deal out of, and they're going to say Aaron Rodgers is washed. Javier here specifically, who I deal with every single day, calling Aaron Rodgers overrated and washed. And Aaron Rodgers has gone on record by the way of saying that he will throw all kinds of different throws in camp.
That's what I was about to say. Today, just watching him, I looked. He made throws and attempted throws that he normally you don't see him make during a game, and some of them worked, some didn't. That's why they resulted in picks. And I guess a lot of people love to say Rodgers is conservative. He doesn't take risks anymore. I personally don't believe that to be fully true, but yeah, he's definitely more free in practice than on the field.
Between us, you're the boots on the ground. You're the eyes over there on the field right now, so you see it for yourself.
He was tossing some, going across his body, across the field, but he completed some. I wish I had a better angle on some of them, but there were some nice throws today.
Yeah, and for Josh Jackson, it's good that he's really standing out in camp. I'm hoping like this is the year it kind of comes together for him, because I remember when he was drafted at 45 a couple years ago, everyone was just freaking out. How did the Packers get him at 45? How did they get him and Jair Alexander? They doubled down, similar to how they took Demarius Randall and Quentin Rollins. They double dipped again, and Jackson hasn't really done anything in the regular season yet. A lot of people wanted to transition him to free safety because he has those zone skills, but you don't really want to make that transition just yet until he truly fails as a corner, and you want to kind of flip him to an entirely different position. So I don't think he's really failed there yet. I think if he can really put it together this year, which so far in camp, he has shown that he's making some noise. He's kind of putting it together mentally and on the field. So yeah, this is definitely a big summer, and it's going to be a big season for him.
Yeah, like we talked about the cornerback room pretty extensively last week, and Jackson's going to be a huge part of that. I always talk about bringing back Tramon Williams, but if Josh Jackson flips a switch and turns out to be the guy we thought we drafted 2 years ago, as much as I would love to see Tramon Williams back, I don't think we'll need him, especially when you add Chandon Sullivan, who looks like he's getting better and better. And Josh Jackson was someone that, like you said, I was shocked he fell as far as he did. He was one of my favorite cornerbacks in the draft. So I love the pick. I'm not ready to give up on him yet. And after getting to watch him in person today, like, he really looked impressive. He was really tight on some people, and I liked what I saw. And here is another person that stood out today, and Nitsuj back once again from last week. Happy to see you back. And yeah, Malik Turner did bring in a couple really nice passes today. One that I saw personally, one of them I missed, but one was behind him, and he kind of reached back with his arms, and it was a really nice hands catch, brought it in, and Jacob.
That's
yeah,
man.
But yeah, no, Malik Turner did have a couple of impressive catches, and considering the wide receiver room right now and how uncertain everything is, it's not the craziest idea to think he could somehow squeak onto the roster. Do you think Turner has a chance to, maybe take Kumerow's spot or something like that?
It's hard. It's hard to really see that, because when you look at the receiver room, you're going to have Devontae Adams, you're going to have Allen Lazard, Equanimeous St. Brown. I think those three are locks. I don't think those guys are going anywhere. Barring a setback with St. Brown in his recovery process, and he has a setback, I think he's good to go. They didn't put him on the PUP or anything like that, like they did with a couple other guys. And then you got Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and that fifth and sixth spot, they're moving Tyler Ervin to receiver, as far as we know. So, and I think you were there today. What were they doing with Tyler Ervin?
Yeah, no, he was mostly catching passes. He was also doing a lot of the pre-snap stuff, coming across with a tap pass. But I was seeing him a lot more just the quick pass game, kind of like those flat screens they like to run with Cobb back in the day, get the blocking to the sideline. So I love that move, honestly, to put Ervin to receiver, because he's talented, and having him as the fourth running back makes no sense. So even if he's more of a gadget player receiver, but we see around the league now, there are guys that every team kind of has that one gadget receiver who's a deep threat, or maybe you could do like a reverse, and they're impact players. It's not going to be every single game, but someone that will matter over a 16-game stretch, and I think Ervin will. We see he's explosive, so I like the move to receiver for him.
Yeah, so then that's pretty much your fifth guy, because with what they want to do with him on offense and the spark that he provides on special teams, that's your fifth guy regardless. So I could see them possibly bringing sixth guy. So it's going to be between probably Malik Turner, Reggie Begelton, and Jake Kumerow. And I think Kumerow right now, considering the fact that he's been in the offense for so long, and like Dusty Evely said, he's like 37 years old. I think he really has the edge on those guys. So right now he's the lead dog as far as that possible 6th spot if they carry 6 guys. So Turner still has some work to do. If he stood out today like Nitsuj, who I just realized the other day that's Justin backwards.
Wow. Justin. Yeah.
When I was doing the roundtable with Jacob, Maggie, and Dusty, one of them said that's Justin backwards, and I was like,
"Oh, that is pretty perfect." Yeah.
Yeah. So if he stands out on a couple different days, he puts together more consistently, strings it together. It's harder with no preseason game, so that's really a huge disadvantage. But yeah, we aren't carrying.
Not seeing him in game action as opposed to getting the chance to see Kumaro in game action, there is a difference. But my only thing is that, number one, if Kumaro's the oldest on the roster, it's like, you kind of know, you know what he is already, and
exactly.
It's not necessarily the greatest. It's not the worst, but it's not going to be that great. And then, but I also think Bagleton has this just appeal, because I think he could be really good out of the slot. And I think the Packers, that's a spot right now where it's like all the receivers are big. So unless you want to put Devontae Adams in the slot, which is something I think can be done from time to time, but not primarily, they need a slot receiver. I don't know about you. I mean, St. Brown, he could line up in the slot, but he just profiles as an outside receiver. His size, speed, it just kind of seems like that would make more sense. But Jacob, I'm totally with you on that all day. No, but yeah, that's how I see it. Honestly, I think Bagleton is the dark horse to make the last receiver spot.
Jacob has nothing but good things to say about everybody else, but he just shits on me constantly. It's like
clearly him and Twitter are conspiring against you together, and
yeah, now I know who's been getting me suspended all this time.
It's been Jacob this whole time.
That
here, Carlos says there's no way we're carrying 6 receivers, 4 or 5 at most. So, I mean, I hear that when you consider the tight end room, and also the fact that they might carry 4 running backs. But I mean, there's no way it's going to be 4 receivers. You can't enter the season with 4 receivers. So
yeah, that's unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, I guess 5. Like if just the guys aren't stepping up enough, and you want to see what you have more at tight ends, and you keep and someone else stands out and you're like, we got to keep this guy. I could see that happening, but the Packers have, for the most part, unless I'm mistaken, I believe they're usually more wide receiver heavy than not when it comes to their 53.
I have it in my notes on my phone somewhere, but I'm not going to go digging for it. It's like year by year how many they go into the regular season with. One of the years recently, they went in with like 7 or 8, and then like the next year they went in with 5. So yeah, 4 is definitely like out of the question. That's pretty much unheard of in today's NFL. But 5, I've been saying 5 pretty much all off season. That was before I found out they were moving Tyler Ervin to receiver. So that that threw like a whole cog in my plan. And so now I'm more open to the idea of them carrying 6. And I mean, you look at the offense, you look at Josiah Deguara, Aaron Jones, and Jay Sternberger, and the plans they have to just get these guys into all kinds of different roles, the versatility that they have. So there's less of a need to carry such a heavy number of receiver,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you said, the tight end room is really, it's just so deep and you have so much invested in it. I would rather see them try to make those guys work than a 6th receiver who probably won't end up impacting the team that much anyway. And just speaking of Deguara, after practice, I was heading to my car and I see this guy walking across the street, and he looked clearly in Packers gear, and he's massive. And I'm like, who? I couldn't recognize him from far away. I got closer, realized it was him. He was standing next to my car, and I have like an SUV. He was like towering over my car. I mean, this guy Josiah Deguara is as advertised. He is ripped. He is just thick, tall. And when I saw him on the field, he also has some speed to him. So I was a little bit confused by the pick, maybe, considering they took Sternberger the year before. But seeing him in person, I get why LaFleur fell in love, because he's pretty intimidating, honestly, up close. He is a large person.
Dude, I was intimidated by Mark Murphy when I saw him up close for the first time.
Yeah. When I met him today just now, I was surprised, honestly. Number one, he is like taller than I thought, but also just like I just got here. I didn't even know if practice started yet. I was trying to find my way around, and I'm walking down the block, and I see this guy, and I'm like, is that Mark Murphy? And I was like gonna walk past him. I'm like, I can't just walk past him. So I was like, Mr. Murphy, and like he turns around, but like he was so nervous about social distancing, like he's like backing away from me. And I was like, no, don't worry, I'm not like chasing you down, but no, but I got a good picture with him. But it was funny, yeah, we got to talk for a second, and I saw Matt LaFleur and Mike Pettin. I saw but basically the whole coaching staff walked down the block together, and I honestly didn't even notice. I was talking to Matt Schneidman from The Athletic, and we were just discussing practice, whatever. And I look up, and like Matt LaFleur's face was like right in front of my face. And again, I was like, should I like try to say something? And I was like, Coach, wait, I gotta get a picture. And like some security guy tried like stopping me, but our wonderful coach Matt LaFleur was like, yo, relax, let's get this picture done. So we made it happen. Definitely.
He seems like that kind of guy. He seems like just talking chill about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he was pretty cool. I mean, it was a pretty quick interaction, but yeah, it was definitely fun to see, LaFleur and Pettin and Murphy, and just seeing some of these guys just play it on the field. It changes things when you're that close. Even though I was stuck behind the fence with a tarp, you're closer than you will be anytime you go to a game. And you see just some of these guys I think the Packers have one of the more underrated just overall rosters across their team, offense to defense. There's a lot of really good talent and young talent. It's just about those guys reaching their potential.
When I went to San Francisco, I got dropped off in the complete opposite of the stadium, and I'm walking around the stadium. I'm wearing a suit, carrying my stupid laptop bag, and I'm walking through, and it's like 80-something degrees. I'm walking through all these drunk dudes tailgating because I had no idea where I was, so I'm like just like standing out like a sore thumb. I'm walking through like one of like the back sides of the stadium, and Mark Murphy walks right by me, and he looks like he's in a rush. He looks like he's pissed off about something, and he walks by me, and I look up, and he doesn't even look at me, right? Like obviously, obviously. I look up, and then I look back at him as I walk by, and I was like, "What the hell?"
Basically, I think the mask
starstruck for a minute.
Yeah, no, I only got that. I don't know if I know your eyes that well, but I'm gonna just go for it. It worked out. It worked out pretty well, but
it was the weirdest possible spot to see him. It was like in a back alley, like behind the stadium. So it was just like really
a bit shady. Yeah, he probably was like trying to avoid you. It's like, why is this guy standing around in the alley right now? But a quick shout out to Mark Cush or Mark Ush 08. Yeah, Jerry Gray is going to make a huge difference for this defense, without a doubt. And Absolutely. You know what? For all we know, he could be a huge reason in Josh Jackson's progression, as we've seen over the beginning of camp. And he has a ton of experience working with defensive backs. And considering how young and talented the Packers cornerback room is, he should be a huge part of it. I mean, taking now and getting to build Jair and Kevin King to be even better players than they already are, and then building up Chandon Sullivan and hopefully Josh Jackson as well. Yeah, I mean, Jerry Gray is definitely one of the most underrated acquisitions for the Packers, and overall just a really solid coaching add for any team.
Yeah. I mean, coaching acquisitions usually fly under the radar by fans. They're not as usually highly touted as player signings.
Other than maybe offensive coordinator, people get excited about, but for sure,
like
next coach, most people aren't going to notice.
Positional stuff, yeah. I mean, this Jerry Gray. I mean, he what he did in Minnesota with Harrison Smith and Xavier Rhodes. He was in Seattle in 2010. He helped with Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas, albeit for a year as rookies, but still. He has the impressive track record. He's a former DB himself, and he is going to do wonders for these young guys. They're still young. They're still impressionable defensive backs who are going to be they're going to be stepping into a really big role this year, and especially with Jair. He's going into his third year now, and the expectations are higher because he wants to play at this All-Pro level. He wants to become kind of emerge as like I don't want to say the face of this defense, but the face of that secondary, which is
Yeah.
going to be tough to do. You still got Adrian Amos back there. You got Darnell Savage back there.
Yeah, but
And-
he's like the voice. He's got that swagger. He's got that
Oh,
vibe.
yeah, confidence.
He's the guy of the secondary, and he needs to. I think
He's the
big
mouth.
thing for him. Yeah, he's definitely the mouth. And look, he starts coming down with a couple of those near miss interceptions. The conversation is going to be over, and he's going to be
For
a clearly elite cornerback across the NFL. So that was the biggest thing for him. I mean, he dropped a couple interceptions he could have made. If he made those plays, we would probably. I mean, we're already high on him, but we would be talking about him even higher, I'm sure, today.
Yeah, without a doubt.
But real quick to go off of football, because I've noticed Packers shows more than anywhere else. They love a good food take anytime they can get one. So Zach, I mean, I guess let's hear your hottest take when it comes to food in general. It's something you hate that everyone loves, something you love everyone hates. But what's your biggest food take?
All right. This is one that I'm kind of like notorious for on Twitter, and this could be the reason why my account got suspended. Who knows? Boneless wings are better than bone-in.
Ooh, that makes sense for you to get thrown right off of Twitter right there. Yeah, I might have reported you if I saw that tweet. I don't know.
Hey, look, all I do, look, when I log on to Twitter, I do nothing but I speak facts and I log off. That's what I do. You know?
And if that's your facts, and then I hear that. I mean, mine's probably going to be worse, to be honest, because, well, it changed, but for like the first about 20 years of my life, I was adamant, do not eat pizza. Hate pizza. Pizza, number one hated food. And every time I said that, I got that exact reaction. It was like, are you an alien or some kind of demon? Who doesn't love pizza? And I got to say, somehow between watching Dave Portnoy's pizza reviews over the last few years, it has somehow turned me on to pizza, where now I'm actually quite a fan of pizza. But my number one food take, and I hope my brother, if you want to find him on Twitter, @Mo_Burko is listening, I will not eat, I can't even be around, smell, or even say the word, but I'll say it, gum. Absolutely disgusting. I mean, look at Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll on the sideline, I swear, Zach, is my nightmare. I can't look at Pete Carroll chewing. It's just, there's something about it, the word, the sound, the smell, the texture, disgusting. So I got to go with, gum is my number one food take. Get it out of my face. I can't be part of it.
That's just like the randomest. That was like the last thing I was expecting you to say.
Yeah.
I was expecting like pineapple on pizza or like mayonnaise or something.
I don't eat mayonnaise, but I think mayonnaise is widely enough not eaten. I don't eat mustard or mayonnaise. So mustard, mayonnaise, and gum are the three things I will not eat under any circumstance. But that's basically those are all my food takes. I'm back on the pizza train, so don't attack me about pizza. But back to football, and
I have some gum in my desk if you want me to.
No, please. I don't know if I'll make it through the rest of the show.
We'll have to cut it short.
But another question from Aaron, and I think it's an important one about someone who, whether offense, defense, or even special teams, someone who might just come out of nowhere and step up big for the Packers this year, because every year, whether it's because of injury or underperformance, you need some guy that you weren't expecting to really step up. So who's someone you think can just, we're not really talking a lot about, but could all of a sudden be a big deal later on in the season?
Well, who do you think? I mean, you're Mr. Training Camp over here.
Well, someone I think is an interesting, I mean, it'll be harder because of no preseason, but Stanford Samuel, the undrafted free agent, is someone that I just think is very interesting. Him and Vernon Scott. But Vernon Scott, since they drafted, I think is more of a lock for the roster. So I'll talk more about Samuel. He was good in college. I was surprised that he went undrafted. And seeing him out there today, like, he just seemed like he knew what he was doing in a pro defense. He was never lost. He wasn't, blowing coverages. And he just, watching his college tape, it just seems like his instincts and his ability to get to the ball were really impressive. So he's undrafted. There's no preseason. He could very likely not even make the roster. But if he does, I think he's someone to look out for. If he doesn't, then I would revert to Vernon Scott at safety as kind of like, with that Raven Green potential role, because you got Amos and you got Savage. So maybe get him in a hybrid kind of role because he's been looking pretty good. So I think both of those guys are people to keep an eye on.
Raven Green was actually my answer. He's not a rookie. Didn't play last year. He got hurt in week 2, I believe. So he was pretty much scratched for the rest of the year. But coming off of that rookie season in 2018 and him showing what he could do in that hybrid role as that sub linebacker, I think a lot of people are kind of just forgetting about him when it comes to the linebacker conversation and who's going to be playing next to Christian Kirksey. And I think you and I actually talked about this before. You think about that middle linebacker position. You talk about Christian Kirksey. You think about Kamal Martin, and they want to get Oren Burks more involved now that he's healthy. He's heavier. He's finally rehabbing that shoulder injury. He's feeling great. But you still want to get Raven Green involved. Obviously not in run heavy situations, but when you can get him involved, I believe he was playing in dime, but when you can get him involved and just get him more into that more rotational role and just the similar way they were using him as a rookie, then that's just definitely gonna impact Mike Pettine's defense for the better. Because when he was on the field, I can't remember what the numbers were. I know I did a story on it at the time, but when he was on the field, their run defense for those first 2 weeks of the year last year, it was actually doing really well. And then it kind of bottomed out for the next 7 weeks or so. Then they got Abraham Campbell back from the PUP, I believe he was on. And then it kind of stabilized a little bit. So having Raven Green kind of in that role, in the fold right there, I think that's definitely going to help them. So that's my guy. Been rocking with him for the last 2 years. I'm going to continue. So
no, you've been on the Raven Green train for a while, and I'm with you. I think regardless whether it's him or if it's Campbell or Redmond or Scott, that hybrid role is clearly an important role, not only in Penn's defense, but in the NFL overall. We discussed it last week. You need Jacob's daughter Blake must have got to the computer, because that is not a comment in any way. But back to what I was saying, Raven Green.
One of Jacob's articles.
But someone's going to need to be able to have that hybrid role where they can cover a running back on a wheel route out of the backfield, but also be able to play hard-nosed football, come in at the line of scrimmage and make a tackle, not necessarily for a loss, but a tackle at the line of scrimmage, a 2-yard gain, something like that, where you have a fast, hard-nosed safety that could come in from outside of necessarily just being inside the box. I think Raven Green can be that guy, and if not him, maybe Campbell or Redmond. But I think that position specifically will be important for the Packers. And Carlos here mentioned Keke Kingsley, who we talked about last week. He's definitely someone we know is going to be key this year. He needs to have a big year next to Kenny Clark, because we know what happened with the run defense last year. So, yeah, we talked about Kingsley Keke a bit last week, but he'll definitely be someone that that needs to step up. I mean, either him or Dean Lowry, or we might be in more trouble with our run game again.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. They need, regardless of who it is, they need someone to step up on that defensive line, whether it's Dean Lowry, whether it's Kingsley Keke going into his second year, or even if it's Tyler Lancaster, who a lot of people were hoping he would kind of like, step in, make an impact, and he kind of fizzled out. So you never know with undrafted guys.
One final thing before we close out, just watching practice today, another name I maybe should have mentioned was Tim Boyle, because he looked good, and he's looked good throughout practice. And it's like, obviously, you have Jordan Love, so he's of course a lock for the roster. Do you think this is the year the Packers roll with 3 QBs, especially considering COVID? And do you think they would do it even without COVID? Like, do you think Boyle has done enough to deserve a spot, even if it wasn't for COVID?
Honestly, Matt LaFleur did say I think they're going to roll with 3 quarterbacks. So even like with COVID, yeah, I think that's happening regardless. But without it, honestly, I don't see how you can get rid of Tim Boyle, because I think he's proven as much disdain as I have for the whole Tim Boyle cult.
Yeah.
I don't see how you cut him at this point, just because he's played well in the preseason. He's put together such a good camp so far. He's done everything that is asked of him, and he's done just so well so far. So he hasn't justified being cut. And I don't think you can put him on the practice squad at this point. I think he's too far into his career and has enough games under his belt, so he doesn't qualify. But yeah, I think even regardless that we carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they're going to have to roll with 3. And just, I mean, I think the quarterbacks worked kind of on the other side of the field a lot when they were doing at least some of their more just passing drills. So I didn't get a great look at that. But running plays with the offense, I definitely saw some better throws out of Boyle than Love today. I mean, Love's made some nice passes. I haven't mentioned him yet. I probably should real quick. He looked pretty good. Definitely made a couple of nice balls, but I did see at least 2 or 3 throws that reminded you a lot of his season last year, running one way, throwing across the field, and it didn't get intercepted any of the times, but they were all incomplete, and they were all bad decisions, and decisions that in the NFL more times than not will turn into interceptions, potentially going the other way for 6. So he needs to rein it in. Look, he's a rookie. His 3rd day of practice. He's not going to be amazing, but just kind of get out of that headspace where he needs to do everything and make crazy plays on every single play and just work within an offense. So I think if they bring in 3, it wouldn't surprise me if Boyle is technically is QB2 entering the season with Love as the 3rd.
And we've seen just from some of the videos going around, especially from Andy specifically, he had a nice shot of all 3 quarterbacks at practice. Yeah. Boyle is a lot closer to what Aaron Rodgers is, mechanically, footwork-wise, everything in the pocket, than Jordan Love. So I know a lot of people, when this was brought up a couple months ago, a lot of people kind of scoffed at the notion that Tim Boyle would go into the year as the primary backup, as quarterback number 2. But that's way more realistic of a possibility now than ever. And I think now people are starting to realize that, 3 practices into camp. And I was one of those people that scoffed at it. I'll admit that right now. I thought.
Well, I was kind of laughed it off as well.
Yeah.
I was like, in the first round, there's no way in hell Tim Boyle's being the backup. Then, what the hell just happened? But is proven that he deserves to be there. And you know what? If I don't even want to say it, but if it came to a point where you needed a quarterback not named Aaron Rodgers, I'd probably be more confident right now in Boyle. He's more experienced as an NFL player and in this offense. He's watched Rodgers play, so I think that makes more sense. You go in with 3, let Boyle be the backup. Love is gonna likely have his time, but they're thinking, I would imagine when they drafted Love, they're looking at that ceiling. Everyone's talking about that, Patrick Mahomes-like ceiling, that Love can be amazing. So I don't think they should be rushing that. Let him fully mature under Rodgers, and even if that means taking 13 reps behind Boyle, but if he's not going to be starting for another 2 years anyway, let him be fully ready and damn good before he gets thrown out there as the starter, and it could end up being a failure. But yeah, that was just my final thought on Love. And Zach, if you have any final thoughts on today's practice or anything else around the team.
I think I'm good. Well, someone did say something stupid about the Lakers earlier, but I shouldn't close out a second.
I was going to mention that, but I wasn't sure if you were ready, if you were in the right mind space for it.
I'm fine. It was just one game. I'm good. All right. I mean, they're down 0-1, just like the Bucks. So I mean, that was a Bucks fan that said that, by the way. So I don't know where they get off talking.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because number one, both of those teams are going to win those series. Saying the Lakers and the Bucks will win, and yawn. Bucks and Lakers.
That's Riley. He's my friend. Look, you're not going to win a playoff game shooting 5-32 from 3. That's
yeah. But look, we all know what LeBron is. I mean, they're not losing that series. The Bucks aren't losing that series. Hopefully, we see them in the finals. I think that would be fun. Real quick, go Bulls. I totally agree. I am a strong Bulls stan over here. We really have a great future, even though our front office is maybe the worst in all of sports everywhere. But other than that, everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Open Book. I'm going to be at practice again tomorrow, so if you want some live updates, feel free to follow my page on Twitter at @BookofEli_NFL. And Zach has one final thing to say before we go.
One last thing. I got a text from my friend Alex just now. She says, your wing opinion surprisingly is superior, and I thought you should know that.
Oh, all right. So you got some fans.
Yeah. Want to make that clear to everybody in the chat right now?
All right. Well, hopefully no one texts me anything about gum because I don't want to hear anything about it. But all right, everyone. We're going to be back here next week, Wednesday, 5 p.m. Send in your questions on Twitter. Hit us up, personal page. Go to the Game On Wisconsin page at Game On WI. And that's it for us this week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.